Today I'm going to have a chat about my Necron Army List and the new Necron Codex 8th edition.
Necrons!
Nick speaking, and welcome to this video. Right, today I'm going to have a look at my Necron Army List, how I got to this army list, how the index has affected my lists, and also what I can expect from the 8th edition Necron Codex when it's released. Before that though, if you love Necrons and you would like to keep up to date with the wonders of Warhammer 40k, then please give me a sub and hit the bell button so you don't miss a Necron upload. Okay, so Index 1, the Necron Index, has been out now for around 6 months, and the new Necron Codex for 8th edition is just around the corner. Now, it's taken me a very long time of experimenting with the index and all the different units that we have in the Necron army to finally get a Necron army list. Now, there's been a couple of reasons why it's taken me quite a long time to get to my fixed Necron list. One of the reasons is that obviously Necrons have changed quite a bit in the new index. Now, at the same time as having new index rules for our army, we also had a brand new edition of 8th edition. Once again, really changing things up, mixing things up. So I've had to do quite a bit of experimentation, not only with the new Necrons, but also obviously with 8th edition. It's taken me this amount of time to finally conclude the type of list that I think I can get out of this index, and hopefully pushing forward make this list pretty competitive when the new codex comes out. Now, personally, I like to have 3 different fixed army lists for my different armies, so that when I play I don't have to make a different list every week. I can pick and choose from the 3 different lists that I have. Of course, now and again I will experiment or change units up or just play something totally different. But having those 3 fixed army lists I find is really useful. A, I can play the game quickly, and B, I can really get to learn and know those particular lists. So previously my 3 fixed army lists were my 60 strong flayed one list, themed around 60 flayed ones. I had a super flanks list which was based around a big blob of warriors with an overlord, a couple of ghost arcs, and then my 3rd list was my doom list. I had doom scythes and doom arcs in there, and it was a bit more of a tank heavy list. Now, I've been looking at these lists for 8th edition, and the biggest problem that I've got out of everything is the new points costs. My 60 strong flayed one list, which was 2,000 points in 7th edition, is now around 3,000 points for exactly the same list. And that's also been one of my issues, trying to work out how I'm going to make these themed lists work when the points cost now has gone up dramatically. So I decided the starting point would be, rather than trying to work on all 3 lists, just to pick one of the lists. So I worked on my flayed one list. So that was my list that had 60 strong flayed ones. And then I started to experiment. Now, I was lucky enough to play quite a large game with one of my subscribers. We played 150 point power level. Now, at that points level I was able to use that list in its entirety. So I was able to get on the table 60 flayed ones, 3 units of wraiths, 3 units of scarabs, supported by some troops, and it proved that the list worked really well. However, if you add up the points, it's around 3,000 points, way too many for a standard game. Ideally, I needed to get this list down to 2,000 points. So what I did is I started playing quite heavily the units from that list, but surrounded by different units. So I would concentrate one week maybe on wraiths, and the next week on flayed ones, etc. Really try to hone in and work out how these units are working in 8th edition. I even went out and did a full scarab farm list. I really wanted to see what those scarabs could do by themselves, and in turn learning the individual units and how they work in 8th edition. Now, playing these units in this manner has really helped me work out how the units work on the table and also how they interact with each other, and that in turn has helped me come up with my Necron army list. So let's have a chat about that right now. Okay, so now I'm going to have a chat about my list, how I concluded to get to the list, which I hope you will find interesting, and also have a chat about how I'm expecting the list to change and improve when the 8th edition codex comes out. But first of all, I have a little apology to make to both Winter's SEO and also to my buddy, because I have been cheating. Well, not on purpose, but for some reason I accidentally didn't take enough HQs in my battalion detachment for the list. So apologies to Winters and to my buddy for that. In all honesty, I don't think it would have made any difference at all. I'm just lacking one HQ. I've made some changes to the list. I've got the proper list now, but there really isn't that much difference from the list that I had to the list that I've now got. Now the reason why I need that battalion detachment in the list is for command points. So the list I played was still legal as such, but I was using too many command points. However, that's all sorted now. So apologies for that. Let's get straight on and have a look at the list. Okay, so my flayed one list, which is usually centred around 60 flayed ones, either 3 units of 20 or 6 units of 10. It's changed over the years, but it's always been centred around 60 flayed ones. However, in the index, I'm finding that this is impossible. Flayed ones have gone up dramatically in points. I think they were 13 points before, and now they're 21 points. That's a huge points increase. And to get those 60 flayed ones on the table, I really struggle to find space for all of the supporting units which are needed to make the flayed one army work. It's very difficult to play 60 flayed ones without the supporting units. Yes, they can deep strike in and they can assault now and they can be very good, but also they can deep strike in and just stand there and be shot to death. You've got to have the supporting units. You've got to have the wraiths and the scarab swarms all charging in along with the flayed ones. That's how the list works. So it was with regret that I decided I couldn't use all 60 flayed ones in my flayed one list. So I had to look in a different direction and a different way to theme the list. Now the supporting units for my flayed ones are scarabs and wraiths. Wraiths because they're fast, they're durable, they have the 3+ invulnerable save, they can be a pain to take down with their toughness 5 and all their wounds. And then scarabs, a nice cheap unit, again lots of wounds, a good amount of attacks, good for bogging things down, and only 13 points each. These two are great supporting units, but you've got to have the numbers behind them. And this is where I decided to take a different direction with my flayed cron list. So I can't really call it flayed crons now, because although I do feature flayed ones in the list, it's not really based solely around flayed ones, so I need to come up with a new name. So I concluded that scarabs and wraiths is where I need to be for this army to work. So I have 3 units of scarabs, 8 in each, and 3 units of wraiths. Now my wraiths in my previous illegal list had particle casters, which is a great way to go. However, I had to drop those casters on the wraiths to free up points for another HQ. However, I'm still spending 50% of my points on that fast attack section in the Outrider detachment for the list. So that's 1,000 points. Now I know that's points heavy just in that slot. However, this is more of a themed list, and I really need to put those points into that slot to make this list work. Now in terms of the flayed ones themselves, as I said, I do have them in the list, but now I've only got 2 units, and 2 units of 9 actually, just because of the way the points worked. So 2 units of 9 with 3 units of scarabs and 3 units of wraiths, and their jobs in the list is basically to go out and cause as much distraction as possible in the meantime while getting any objectives if it's a Maelstrom mission. Now of course you do need a HQ in the Outrider detachment, and I've gone for a cryptic, and I've actually given this guy the Veil of Darkness. Now he's not my warlord because he's probably going to die at some point during the game. But yeah, Veil of Darkness and also the Staff of Light. And I'm going to talk about how I'm going to use him in a second. But first of all I want to have a look at my battalion detachment. Okay, so now I want to talk about the battalion detachment. So that's 2 HQs and 3 troops, and that gives me extra command points, which is what I'm after to help make the list work. Now it also gives me some backfield objective takers in forms of some troops. Now I don't put a lot of points or faith in my backfield objective takers. They're there, and if the rest of my army is able to do its job very well, they can survive the game. However, if my enemy has little deep strikers or flyers or something that can get into my backfield ranks, it doesn't surprise me at all if everything in the backfield dies. The army really isn't about the backfield, it's about the front field. It's about those wraiths, the scarabs and the flayed ones doing what they do best. Now in terms of the HQ choices for the battalion detachment, I've gone for 2 really cheap HQs. 2 lords. Now originally my list only had 1 lord, however as I said I've squeezed a few points out of this list to give me 2 lords. Now I know lords aren't that great, however I do find that having cheap HQs just works very well for this list. Now I'm not expecting these guys to last very long if someone gets into my back ranks. However, if someone doesn't get into my back ranks, these guys can just sit on the objectives and they don't really cost me many points. Now one of the lords has a hyperphase sword, and the second lord is going to have a Warsight and Enduring Will. That's the warlord trait that reduces any wounds that he takes by 1 to a minimum of 1. Quite useful on a cheap HQ, especially when he's got living metal as well. Now I've gone for a Warsight on this HQ because if he does get into close combat, I just found that the hyperphase sword just really wasn't cutting the mustard, so hopefully the Warsight will help him if he does get into trouble. Now in terms of troops for this particular detachment, I've gone for 2 squads of Immortals, 5 in each, and they've got the Tesla guns. The reason why I've gone for Tesla is because of the range, 10 shots at 24 inches, just from 5 guys. I've gone for the Immortals here because of the 3+ save. So I put these into cover and hopefully get a 2+ cover save. Very useful. If they do take casualties, then the Lord has the Lord's Will, allowing me to re-roll their morale check, which is quite useful. Again, just helping a little bit more with their survivability, even though they're quite weak at the back. Now, alongside those 2 troops, because you've got to have 3 troops, I have a big unit of warriors. Now I had to reduce the warrior size unit down to 16 when my original list was 17, however it's still a good amount of warriors, and those are going to be deployed with the Cryptic because of course I'm going to make use of the Veil of Darkness. So not only am I going to have all of my Wraiths and my Scarabs and then the flayed ones coming in, I'm going to be deep striking in 16 warriors right into your face. And that gives me a lot of attack with this list, and this list is all about attacking. So that comes in at 1998 points, and it gives me 7 command points. And just like any army list that you're making, you should have a plan for your command points, and I do have a plan for all 7 of my command points. Now the fact that I don't have any multiple damage weapons like heavy destroyers, where I might want to save the command points to re-roll the damage, means that I can use those command points elsewhere. And I do have 7 in total, so this is how I'm going to use the command points for this particular list. So I'm going to use 1 set of 2 command points to help keep the warriors alive. Those warriors will be teleporting across the table, they'll be double tapping, rapid firing their shots, and the next turn no doubt will take heavy casualties. Now there's just about enough warriors in there to generally not die in 1 turn of shooting, and that means I can use 2 command points to help keep them alive for a turn. Now I'm not prepared to use more than 2 command points to help keep these warriors alive, so I'm only going to do this once, the auto morale check, and I think that's good enough for them to do what they need to do on the table. What I'm going to do is I'm going to save the other command points. That's 2 lots of 2. Remember I've got 7 in total. So 2 lots of 2 to help with the Cynaptic Wraiths. So I'm going to give them RP twice and try to get as many Wraiths up as I can. Now remember, the Cryptic's ability to do +1 to RP isn't just for infantry, it's any unit within 3 inches. So if you can get your Wraiths and Cryptics together, you do actually get up on a 4+. Very, very useful. So that would be 6 of my command points used up, and then I have 1 left, and that I'm going to save for a fouled charge. So that's probably going to be on the flayed ones when they deep strike in, maybe a Wraith unit if I've got an important charge to make. So I've got 1 reroll foul charge, twice I can reanimate my Wraiths, and once I can stop my warriors fading morale and helping them reanimate with the Cryptic there. And that's how I'm going to use my command points. I'm really happy with this list. It's a lot of fun to play, it suits my playing style, it is a themed list, and it is lacking in certain areas. Anti-tank, however, as a themed list, you do tend to find that happens. Now talking of anti-tank, yes, I don't have much in the list. I've hardly got any shooting, and whilst yes, I can assault a tank and maybe stop it from shooting, I'm going to struggle to kill tanks on the table. However, I have subconsciously decided to totally ignore anti-tank and try and make the list work in a different way. And as you know, anti-tank stuff in the index is quite hard to come by, and I just don't think I can fit it into the army and make the army work how I want it to work. Like I said, it is a themed list, and having played theme lists in the past, I know that you don't necessarily always have to take the latest meta to make things work. Sometimes having an unusual list, something different, something that when your opponent sees your army on the tray, he says, okay, so let's talk about moving forward with my list and the new Necron Codex. Now, I don't think anyone can argue that the thing that Necrons really need in the new Codex is a points reduction in the units and an easier way to take out vehicles. Now, it's the points reduction which is a thing that I'm going to be looking for to help my list work. So if there was an overall points reduction within the index, I think that really could help my list improve quite a bit. Now, not necessarily changing the list too much, although if, for example, flayed ones got mega cheap, how fantastic it would be to have a load more flayed ones in this army. I think it would be fantastic. However, I'm not expecting flayed ones to be dramatically cheaper. I'm hoping I might be able to get at least one more unit of flayed ones in the list, but I'm also hoping for a few points reductions elsewhere. I would love to have better HQs, or at least make my Warlord better. Anything that makes your Warlord more survivable, i.e. more wounds or a better save, etc., is definitely better. Now, my original Flayed One list had Imitech, and he was there because he was very survivable. I'd love to get a character into the list like that as my Warlord, and in an ideal world probably beef up the unit sizes of those immortals in the backfield objectives, just again to make them just a little bit more survivable. Now, in terms of the Cryptic and the Veil of Darkness and then the Warriors I would love to get that unit size up to 20. 15, 16 is a reasonable amount, but a unit of 20 would definitely help with their survivability once they've used the Veil of Darkness, and of course give you more rapid fire shots as well. In the fast attack choice, again, the Scarabs, I've got units of 8. I'd like to make those into maxed out units of 9, and then the Wraiths themselves, again, I'd like to put those particle casters back on the Wraith, just giving them that little extra shooting and that little extra ability in my turn to shoot those pistols in the assault. Pretty useful. The particle casters I found didn't really do that much, however it's just nice to have the ability to shoot, and on a lucky day you can do some extra damage with them. So if I had more points to play with, as you see, I'd basically just beef up the army as I've got it, maybe add more Flayed One units. However, if the Codex allows it, it would be great to add some anti-tank into the list as well. Now, I've got no speculations on what the Codex is going to have in terms of anti-tank. I've heard there's going to be certain dynasties where Gauze is going to give you an extra -1. That could be quite useful. However, I don't think that's going to work very well with this list. I think maybe just having 1 or 2 anti-tank units shooting at the back, maybe some Triarch Stalkers or some Heavy Destroyers or something, depending on points. But I can live without it. I suppose what I'd really be after is more stratagems to make what I have work even better. I'm really loving the RP stratagem, really helping those Wraiths survive. And if we can get some more stratagems like that, maybe something like Solar Pulse, which means our enemy is at -1 ballistic skill when they shoot for 1 turn, that could really help my army in turn 1. I can push my army forward, pop off Solar Pulse, and then my enemy at -1 ballistic skill. Stratagems like that, I think, could really help my army. So I'm not necessarily looking for new units to put in the army, just to make the army work better as it is. So overall, I'm very happy with my list. I'm very excited for the Codex to come out and making this list even better. Now, I know, as I said, it is a themed list. It is lacking in certain areas, but I think if you know me by now, I do like to be different. I enjoy playing something different. But I'd love to know what you think of the list, both as a Necron player and also as a non-Necron player if you happen to be watching as well. How do you feel about facing this list on the table? Let me know in the comments box below. Beam me up!